I talk a lot about mental health and autism on this channel. Not only that, I have the privilege of talking to thousands, if not millions of people about these subjects. This is largely because so many of you have watched my videos, liked my videos, and shared them around. Though this obviously brings me feelings of enormous gratitude, it also brings me an enormous responsibility. Every day, I have people messaging me asking for advice on how to deal with their various diagnoses. Will I ever get a job? How can I get my parents to believe me? Am I at the point where I need to go to the hospital? When you get questions like these, you want to respond to them carefully. You want to direct them to the right resources so they can get the help they need. After a while, it dawned on me that I couldn't help all these people on my own. See, in large part, my channel is a one-man operation. I mean, sure, I have my Discord moderators and my support squadron, who I am eternally grateful for, but as for my YouTube channel specifically, I do it all on my own. The lives of all these people shouldn't rest entirely on my shoulders. Instead, what I should try to do is help these people help themselves. That way, they might be able to eventually help their mentally ill brethren, and ultimately create a chain reaction of positivity where the world is made better. When I came to that realization, I tried to think of ways to help my community help themselves. One thing that I often heard from people who are mentally ill or on the autism spectrum was that they were lonely. They had nobody to talk to. Worse yet, they didn't know how to engage with others out of fear of judgment or due to overwhelming anxiety. It's easy for me to understand why, what with the stories of rejection that I hear, of friends and family denying their mental afflictions. So I asked myself, what can I do to help build a community where people who are mentally ill or autistic could be themselves, where they wouldn't be judged, where they could open up without fear of reprisal? Then I asked myself, well, what's one thing that a lot of these people share in common? The answer to this question is a stereotype about autistic people, but it's one that happens to be true. Minecraft. Back at the beginning of March, I announced a contest. I decided to give away a copy of Just Cause 3 and Aeilrynn for the PC. In order to be in the running for these games, you had to do two things. One, build something in my Minecraft server, and two, tell me the one thing you wish the world knew about what it is truly like to have autism, anxiety, depression, ADHD, what have you. After submitting both the creation and the statement, I would feature both in a video on my channel. I figured that doing something like this would not only empower my followers to speak up, but it would also encourage more people to join my Minecraft server, so people could have a place to chill and have fun with people like them. I hope that the creations you see today will encourage more people to join the server, but more importantly, I hope that the following statements you hear will not fall on deaf ears. If you want to see a better world for people who are mentally ill or on the autism spectrum, please consider sharing this video around. If you happen to be somebody who is mentally ill or autistic and somebody hasn't taken you seriously for your afflictions, share it with them. If this video gets enough traction, maybe we can turn this into a regular thing and thus create that chain reaction of positivity. With that said, I hope you all enjoy this Minecraft mental health showcase.
The one thing I wish people knew about autism for me is I don't know all of my symptoms, and because everyone's symptoms are different, I have to constantly try and figure out what my patterns are. Some are more obvious, sure, but I still discover new things about myself and say, oh, that's a thing I probably do because of autism. Some of these things are minor, but sometimes telling me I'm doing something can really help.
These are the words of Helba 1984, whose diagnosis is severe ADHD, depression, and generalized anxiety disorder. As an adult nearing middle age, it means isolation, minimization, and a feeling of being trapped in your own life. Imagine if everything you started, you knew you could do, but could never summon the wherewithal to finish. You can never keep a routine, even if routines would be the best thing for you. ADHD could be easily solved if for 1 hour of my life I didn't have it, but I don't have that luxury. Your advice doesn't help me if you assume I am like you.
My diagnosis is schizophrenia, and there is a very, very big stigma about schizophrenia that we are violent, and that we have violent tendencies, and that we're bad for society. I just want to say that we're the furthest thing from it. Most of us are docile. The ones that are that bad are too far gone, and they went too long without medication. We're not that different. We just see the world differently. And whenever we break down, we don't just have a simple crying fit like you do. Our world can change. I have tactile hallucinations, so I have visual, auditory, and physical hallucinations. It's a hell. The best thing you can do is just understand that we're a little different, and that we're not that scary.
These words come from Belial01589, whose diagnosis is Autism Spectrum Disorder and Borderline Personality Disorder. What it's like having borderline personality disorder and autism at the same time is something I really don't have enough words to describe. It's like autism makes you an alien, foreign to every shore, no place to really belong, while BPD causes your emotions to overwhelm you, your mind betraying you into losing grip on reality in recurrent fits of passion, between periods of lucid numbness that you don't realize are happening, often written off as part of autism, and the dissociation, feeling like an intangible, invisible ghost, so vividly it seems more real than reality itself. You can't be more alone.
People would be surprised to know how much energy it takes to accomplish basic social interaction. While this struggle is invisible most of the time, my silence is often perceived as lack of interest or arrogance, when really it's just the result of social confusion and insecurity. I'm fighting very much to improve, which is why on some occasions it might look like I'm able to hold an elaborate conversation with ease. This involves a lot of concentration, however, and often ends in mental exhaustion.
To you, guilt might be something that you suffer on an occasional basis, but to people on the spectrum like me, it's something that we often experience on a near daily basis, and you could say it's one of the most painful things we suffer on a regular basis. So before you try and negatively impact someone who is on the spectrum, just think twice about the guilt that you may induce on them and the sort of pain that you might induce on them for possibly even a long-term period. As well, it might be something that might come back to haunt you someday, if you believe in karma.
These words come from masterofspys, whose diagnosis is anxiety and depression. My anxiety feels like a pain in intense episodes. I would need to curl up in a ball for hours while also having bad thoughts cloud my head, leaving a storm brewing inside of me. Amidst all this was my happy face in my front, where I would hide my emotions. I did this anytime I was with friends or family because I didn't want them to get worried about me. These words come from AndJerry027, whose diagnosis is Autism Spectrum Disorder. Autism Spectrum Disorder is like being a penguin who is diagnosed by a doctor penguin with an abnormally low body temperature. You can deal with the cold better than other penguins, but when there's a blizzard and everyone huddles for warmth, you can't enter the huddle on the outside because the other penguins think you're too cold. And if somehow you're able to make it inside the huddle, you overheat and become overwhelmed. So as you fight the cold, you wander outside the huddle, not sure whether to keep hopelessly trying to integrate or to wander off alone into the frozen expanse.
I fear a lot of the stories told here will be disheartening. I'm happy to say that it's possible to find one's place in life even if autistic, however. My diagnosis was a relief, allowing me to understand where my weaknesses lied so I could find a job that was right for me. It also allowed me to understand my strengths better, like why I immerse myself in media so deeply it almost drowns me. My contest entry is based on just that, a story that shook me to my core twice. Hold on to hope, fellow autistic kings.
These words come to us from VideoGamer1000, whose diagnosis is Asperger syndrome. Between the lost social cues and my almost alien demeanor, I've always felt so distant from those around me. Asperger's has left me so disconnected from the wider world. Most people just don't understand me, and those who do so often have to leave with changing circumstances. So many friendships seem to pass through my fingers like dust in the wind. Through it all, that sense of loneliness has been the worst. These words come to us from Omnimon EXE, that's a great name, whose diagnosis is PTSD, OCD, and ODD. From all my experiences when it comes to telling people about my disabilities, as soon as they find out, they start to treat me differently than anyone else. In school, I was singled out. That's why I never share my disabilities with anyone except for the people I'm close with. Even if people have disabilities, they are still human. These words come to us from RadMann, whose diagnoses are depression and anxiety. Hey, this is RadMann, and I have managed to mostly overcome depression and anxiety. First, some people's depression, assuming I'm not completely unique, is caused by a lack of both agency and good moral systems. And second, some advice that may apply to someone. Pursue fulfillment over happiness. For example, lift weights instead of eat chocolate. These words were written by Aeilrynn, whose diagnosis is Autism Spectrum Disorder. Look to the future as a dream that can be made reality. Look at life's problems as contextual and try to show empathy for individual struggles. I often could not trust others and had to stay in my own mind, but I found a way to absorb these hardships and stay optimistic. Autism taught me about thinking outside the box and seeking answers for questions no one would answer. But most of all, don't throw away your integrity just because you don't fit with the status quo.
The thing I want to say is just to do some research about autism and spread awareness of it. Because I feel like a lot of discrimination and misunderstandings come from just how uneducated people are about it. Like, no one will teach you this stuff at school, it's crazy. So, if you could just spread awareness about who we really are. We're regular people, maybe a little different, but still regular. And I at least would be happy if you did that.
These words come to us from the Big Zinc, whose diagnosis is ADHD. The one thing I want the world to know about how it truly feels to have ADHD and also probably Asperger's is that we just need a little more patience. For example, I have a little bit of a stutter, and I need a little more time to get out what I have to say. These words come to us from Ximeremix, whose diagnosis is pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. I don't feel disabled, the same way a man born without eyes doesn't feel blind. I've always been like this. I find my depression to be more debilitating than my mild autism. Looking someone in the eye is something I forget, but getting out of bed is a real obstacle. Not to mention falling asleep in the first place. I don't identify with it, but I don't know how much of it is me. I wouldn't know if I was myself if I woke up without it.
If there is one thing I want people to know about autism, it is that just because I am different does not make me better than anyone else. My differences can both be a bane and a boon, like walking through a forest of swords, except you cannot tell where the handle ends and the blade begins.
These words come to us from Oland, whose diagnosis is Asperger's or Autism Spectrum Disorder. People with Autism Spectrum Disorder do not address things out of hate or mockery most of the time, unless perhaps you've really pissed us off. No, we, or at least I, address things out of concern, curiosity, or genuine obliviousness, like a curious child may. These words come to us from EntDesNam, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, whose diagnoses are depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and ADHD. The past few years, I've learned a lot of life skills. I moved to a new country and started work at a retail store in a category I had no previous interest in. I've bought my first apartment with my sweetheart and even used a hammer drill. But I still don't think I know how to. I'm not clever enough. It feels like I just fall into these things from blind luck. Anytime my skill comes into question, I just want to say, you got me. At least I know how to build blocky houses.
My name is Ash. I have anxiety, ADHD, and gender dysphoria. If I could say anything to anyone, please listen to those in your life who live with some kind of condition. It could be your child, your sibling, your lover, your friend who suffers daily and lives with an inability to explain what they're doing or why they're doing it. They might have trouble controlling it or understanding it even. If you care for them, give them some patience. Listen to what they have to say, listen to their needs as they express them, and respond. Odds are, they'll be just as good with you as you've been with them.
When I was a kid, it was obvious that I was different from other kids my age. That was the 90s, back when autism was only seen as a nonverbal disease and also considered something that only affected boys, and some people still think this is the case. There's not enough focus on what it's like to actually live with autism. Neurotypical people think it's a disease that renders us incapable of having a voice. We don't need to be cured. We are not damaged. We are not sympathy props for mom blogs. We are not things. We're people.
Special thanks to everybody who participated in this experiment. You guys created some stuff that truly blew my mind. See, I thought I made stuff in Minecraft that was overzealously huge, but you guys just took it to the next level. And of course, special thanks to Dashnog and DragonsEye42 for helping me moderate the server during this period of time. You both did a great job. Now, as for who wins these copies of Just Cause 3 and Catherine, well, it's up to you to decide. Comment below whose creation you think is the best and whose statement you think is the best. The person with the best creation gets Just Cause 3 and the person with the best statement gets Catherine. Finally, if you want to join my Minecraft server, it's really rather simple. All you have to do is email your Minecraft name to me. My email address is maxderrat@yahoo.ca, but before you email me, just make sure that you have Minecraft Java Edition for the PC. Otherwise, you won't be able to join. You do not have to be mentally ill or autistic to join. Anybody who wants to come in is allowed. And don't worry, we got grief protection up the wazoo. Until my next video, I want to remind all of you, as always, stay yellow.